Today we are creating a vase. After the tutorial on a floral composition with a branch, we've got a lot of questions regarding a vase. Well, I was somewhat confused. Anyway, I'm going to respond to your request and show you the way I woven this vase. Experienced weavers may skip this tutorial since they are unlikely to find anything new from it. As for newbies who've got any questions concerning a vase, you are welcome. This tutorial is meant for you. Start weaving a vase from a bottom. You may weave a round bottom in any technique you like. I'd like to recollect the pattern of Chinese cross and weave a bottom this way. Place one tube onto another. Shape a small loop. Lead a tube through it and tighten. As you see, I'm weaving with newspaper tubes painted dark inky color. So I've got a cross. Now start entwining. In the first circle I entwine 4 tubes in a normal rope-like technique. After which I started joining additional tubes. Since I'm going to turn the bottom over and start weaving the vase upwards, as I always do, I adjoin auxiliary tubes by just placing them between the basic tubes and entwine them with working tubes. The tube tails are going to stick out a bit from the wrong side. I will tighten them a little. However, you don't have to pull them too tight, cause after I turn the vase over, these sticking tails will be hidden. Take a look, please. Here is the front side. As for the wrong side, it is hidden inside and cannot be seen. That's what I like about this vase. So lengthen the working tube, attach additional tubes between the basic ones and entwine. In the following row, press the weaving tie to the center. It is tending to slide apart, but we are going to prevent it. Especially in the very beginning and in the points of lengthening, pull the tubes tight to the center. My working tubes are wet, while the basic tubes are dry. Do you see? Here I've got a bunch of moistened tubes. They've been painted long ago. These ones are dry. Now it's time to adjoin more tubes. As soon as the intervals between the tubes increase, I add extra tubes. What I like about this vase is small intervals between the poles, even in the widest section of the vase, which makes it rather nice looking. So, after some circles woven, you may pull the tubes a bit. I pull the tubes a little from the wrong side in order to prevent curves. Pull just a little bit, otherwise the tubes can slide out. And continue weaving. In the first stage it is very important to tighten the rows to prevent them from sliding apart. As an option, you can add one tube between 2 basic tubes in the current row and another one between the neighboring tubes in the next row. I mean, your main task is to prevent the rows from separating. Continue weaving this way, inserting additional tubes. As soon as the intervals between the basic tubes exceed 2 cm, about 1 inch, add auxiliary tubes between them. Continue weaving up to the required diameter. Make sure the row lies smoothly. When the circle of about 15 cm diameter has been woven, I turn the piece over. The tubes have been pulled. Well, there are some tubes tails sticking, but that's okay, they'll be hidden inside. The next step is lifting the tubes in a gradual and fluent way. Thus, in the first row, you continue weaving, starting to lift the tubes little by little, in order to make the transition smooth and fluent. In the following row, I'm going to make lifting a bit sharper. So far, in the first row, lift the tubes just a little bit. Continue this way, lifting the tubes a bit in the first row, a little more in the second row, and finally lift them vertically in the third row. So I've raised the tubes gradually while weaving 3 rows. Weave a couple more rows holding the tubes vertically and keeping them from leaning. After which, in the same way, during the next 3 rows, start leaning the tubes toward inside gradually. The nice thing about this vase is streamlined shape. Compare these two vases. This one is shaped more fluently, while the second one has a sharper transition. Well, the latter looks rather nice too, but I personally prefer smoother transition. That's why I don't curve the tubes sharp right away, but start leaning them a little in the first row, a bit more in the second row, and finally curve them toward inside sharp enough in the third row. And press the row downward to the bottom to avoid gaps between the rows. Continue this way, pressing the rows and bending the poles gradually toward inside. To prevent tubes from mixing, I unbend them toward the outside a little like this, which makes it easier working with them at this stage. Take a look, please. It is the third row of tubes leaning toward the center. Press the rows carefully and incline the poles still sharper. Continue weaving, directing the poles almost horizontally until the intervals between the poles become too short and it gets inconvenient to weave any further. Then it is time to unite the poles and weave them in couples. So far I can cope with it without merging. Direct the poles horizontally, press them to the previous row and weave rope-like. It is becoming inconvenient, so continue weaving, hugging 2 poles at a time. In this intermediate row, try your best to press the tubes especially tightly to prevent to the previous row, in order to make the transition invisible. merge tubes into pairs and continue weaving. When it becomes too hard to continue weaving again, cut off one pole from each pair and continue weaving, pressing the row thoroughly once again and masking the stumps. Continue weaving this way until you start uniting poles into couples again. Then you can take a tube like this, used as a foil or food wrap base, in order to weave the upper part of the vase smoothly. I've doubled the poles once again. Now start weaving the top. It consists of about 10 rows or so. Well, actually it's up to you to decide on the vase height. In the very end, I just cut the poles off and glued them, since it is inconvenient to tuck them in. The last stage is edge trimming. You don't need any complicated edging here. I've moistened the tubes, and let's just lead them in front of the first pole and inwards behind the second one. You can cut the tail simultaneously. In front of the first pole, behind the second one, inwards. Afterwards I'll drop some glue and cut the tails. Well, you can apply some different edging, but a massive edge won't look balanced here. The emphasis is laid on the vase shape, not on the edging. Continue this way up to the very end. Try to pull the tubes to prevent the stumps from being seen. The final touch is patinating. First of all, it is meant to decorate the vase and to hide the last traces of newspaper print. I use pearl acrylic paint. At first take the remainders off and touch the vase surface in a neat and careful way. That's all. Treat the whole vase surface this way, and the vase is finished. It can be used to keep dried bunch of flowers like here, a floral composition like the one we made in the previous tutorial, or any other flowers. Well, you can keep even natural flowers in it if you put a flask inside. On the eve of the coming Teacher's Day, I propose you creating such a small gift. So, the last thing left is to wait till the glue fastens. I've covered the edge with school glue thoroughly. To cut the tube remainders either with scissors or with nippers. And that's all. The gift for Teacher's Day is ready.